Hello and welcome to another session of Looksies, where we look at something random. Actually, Tetris Piston is what we want to look at today. It's nothing new per se because it popped up on Reddit a while ago, but back then I looked at it privately. But now I do it a bit more publicly, even though, I never really looked at it. If I remind myself, I think I never really looked at the code, and maybe we want to do this today. So first of all, Tetris Piston looks great. Can do a lot of things. Ghost tetromino lets you know where the current tetromino will be dropped. It's amazing, these little details. As a player, you don't even realize them. It's just there, right? Here, wall kick feature. Oh, it just works, but think about it. Somebody has to implement it. But what am I talking about? Let's close these things down and let's start this one in release mode. There we go. Actually I intended to run it in release mode, which should be coming up anytime now. So N for new game, and then we can play Tetris. I've never been particularly good at this. You know, these things, how's that supposed to work? Maybe like this, awesome. See? Getting there. And maybe I can manage to get one line going here before I actually look at the code. Oh, it likes me. It really likes me. Yeah, let's just place this guy here. No! I messed it up. Anyway, I've never seen this, and voila. Cool. We just made it. Maybe this wants to be here. Yeah, that's the Tetris addiction here showing up. But let's close this. And let's look at what's more interesting. Is there anything else here? Yeah, free type is required. So free type dependency is a bit problematic for multi-platform deployment, which is any dynamically linked library, by the way. So no biggie there. So it's interesting that he wrote up a few things about what he found interesting, because he has previously implemented this in many other languages like Delphi, C#, C++. So he writes about this and what he kind of found interesting. I find it interesting that he had so much trouble with signedness of values and that he had to specifically work around this to kind of, protect against overflow, which is something he actually used for good purpose. Maybe this shows that the design, the initial one, might need to be revised, but he made it work anyway. So yeah, let's look at the code. Source main. I mean, there isn't too much to it, I think. It's just a standard project. And in source, there are just two files. So source main is obviously the binary, which defines... It looks very clean, doesn't it? Very nice. First time I look at that. And of course, the Tetris game itself. And I think the way this looks with the colors here... this is entirely done, or entirely implementing the rendering here. Next shape either, which is good, because after all, the game itself, the game logic should be separated. It doesn't have to deal with rendering itself. That's something that other people do. Yeah. So main, start app, good, fine. I mean, in a way, you could probably put this here and nobody would bother. However, as usual, we create a window. This time it's one with OpenGL support, it seems. Exit on escape with a custom font. Look at this. How does that work? And then a piston app, which... again, initializes the graphics. Somehow I don't know what that is. Okay, it's probably just like an enumeration that tells you what, or like an enum variant that tells you what kind of OpenGL you want to support. So yeah, you set up a glyph cache from a font. I find that quite amazing. So you're not relying on any system font. That's probably a good thing. Oh wait, the app. Could it be that the app is the Tetris app? No, huh? Where's the app coming from? Oh, it's something he defines, I see. And the glyph cache is coming from OpenGL graphics. Okay. So probably that uses FreeType then. One thing I wonder, just my own question, can I do this so that it infers the amount of items in there? That would be cool. Yeah. Cargo build. I'm using build release here. Okay, so that doesn't work. Unexpected token. Can I just remove this? And it will still work? Is there a way to not specify this? In C++ or C, this works. Not so much here, huh? Nope. All right. That is interesting. Good to know. So what else is there? The app can render itself, update itself, handle input, and that's pretty much it. So we set ourselves up, we create the app, we create the window, which then gets events. It's interesting because I've seen code where this window was cloned here for some reason, but apparently that is not needed. It looked odd to me when I first seen it, but good to know that it's actually not so much required. So then we match on the event and see if it's an input event, a render event, or an update event. That's kind of how Piston works, and I like it. It's kind of the timed signals you get. You can also set up your window to have a certain frame rate or something, and whatnot. So you have a lot of ways to configure this, but apparently nothing is configured here. Window settings. So yeah, basically it's just forwarded here, huh? Why is I cloned, by the way? Because I, after all, nobody is using this, huh, in this branch, so it can just be provided like this. Should be, huh? Or is I, it doesn't look like a reference to me. See, so clone is not required. Yeah, then we render and we basically just pass on the render arcs. So it's a render thing. Huh. Interesting. I would have thought that if there is a render event, you can kind of extract some useful information, but apparently not. What is this? I mean, just from my information. Piston event render. Can I find this quickly? Piston events. Piston event loop. Would be great to have some sort of documentation for this because I'm really... So is this shutting out the render events? Would surprise me because it seems like a very general implementation. Oh, look. So it does provide something like that. Render arcs. So apparently these render arcs are returned, huh? Or aren't they? No, not here. So where's this render arcs methods? Maybe I can find it in all repositories out there. Search GitHub for render arcs. Code here. Probably there's too much going on, but if you look for fn render arcs and then put this like that, I don't know if that works. So where is it defined? Nowhere. Yeah, anyway, so I think I'm out of time here when it comes to... It crashed anyway. Yeah, whatever that means. But I would be interested in knowing why these are not used and why instead the update arcs or render arcs are queried separately. Okay, so then we render the app, for instance. What happens? We get this render arc structure that we might have just seen, which has a viewport, right? Yeah, it does. So this is really what we just have seen. And what do we get here? So what if I say, well, I want to sum some unit, so to tell me that this doesn't work. And I want to know why. So what do you get there? Expected event loop update args. Oh, so you get arguments, huh? I don't know. Can I do this? Does this make sense? To the point where I get the same result that it tells me that unit. Look. So it gets a render arg struct, huh? So if we ref this, then we should be able to just provide the args, huh? So does that work? Yeah, that totally works. Well, so look at that. So this is not actually required. Yeah. Is this, do we need a ref here, or can we own these args? I mean, sure. I think we can't pass it on because that thing requires a borrow. But look, we can even own it. That's awesome. So that should work now, huh? We don't have to ref the args because we do own the event. I think that's the lesson learned here. So we own everything contained in it. It's not a borrow or something. That's very nice. Yeah, I think while checking the code, I will just do a non-release build because that, after all, should be faster. We have to rebuild the entire thing, though, to make this work. Yeah, there we go. So I will just wait. Okay, my machine is maxed out now because of 8 Rust Cs trying to do their thing and the screen recording going. But yeah, anyway, I think what we want to do, if I can get control over my computer back, which doesn't yet seem to be the case, I can basically fix this up to be what it's supposed to be. You know, and in theory, these things, we don't have to borrow them. We can just move them there. But hey, who cares, really? Doesn't matter. Probably it's faster to just borrow them after all these structs are weighing in with a few bytes more than a few pointers or a single pointer. That's probably certain. Oh, what a nice sentence. Can something be probably certain? I don't think so. Yeah, so here we go. Handle input. What happens? How is that implemented? So handle input, yeah, that's the only one where we're passing on the contents of the event directly, and then we just check it and we own it. We basically take the event away, match on a few things. If there's anything we didn't understand, we just get out of there. I like the way events, or you can structure this using a nested enum here. That's pretty neat. So key presses are the only thing we register. Probably that's what you want. So how does it work? We handle input, self-tetris get column. So we move the set column and set row is basically just moving stuff, huh? So we press down, we move the thing down. And I wonder what happens if you hold. Did that change anything? Maybe we're still super busy building. My computer is still maxed out. And I don't know. It seems to build 2 different versions of the GL generator. Probably one is used by some library this thing depends on that sets it to something specific. Maybe one is used elsewhere, which uses its own version as well. Yeah. That's something I would be afraid of, to be honest. 2 different versions in the same program. Good that it works after all. Gee, come on, finish compiling. Yeah, but it's probably worth the effort. So, update, what happens? Get game over. Okay, so we set elapsed time. Yeah, get and set used as some sort of, as the terminology here. Else, so what else happens? We increment the time Oh, there's a time delta. Good. So this is how you have a notion of time in Piston. Arcs has a time delta. Delta time, whatever that is. Is it in ticks? Get tick time as F64. Seems to be as ticks, even though the delta time seems to be a float 64. If the elapsed time is now greater than the time allotted between ticks, then invoke Tetris tick. Ah. So it kind of resets itself. And it... Ah, the tick time is probably like 1 second or something. Tick time. Wow, that's an amazing computation for tick time. Ah, because that changes actually depending on the level you are in. Okay, and this is how it's computed. Interesting. So you basically just check for the elapsed real time and then let it tick or update it depending on that. That's interesting. Oh, it's amazing. It's still killing my computer here. 8 cores are super busy. So, update. Interesting. Draw, I think, is the most interesting one here. How does that work? So how does it get information about the state of the Tetris playing field? That's just some contents, so we can access inside closure. Yeah, true, because otherwise... Is that required? If you can't you just use self multiple times? Is this a borrow check issue? I mean, if you would use self in a closure, you would just use it, you know, you can only use it there as long as the closure is active, which should be fine. I thought. I would think. But apparently it is not. Use cache, we use many times. Use Tetris. We also use many times. So I wonder. It's a mutable one. I think maybe it's just a more convenient way to, you know, I think you could use this self within the closure because you don't use it outside at all. But to me, it seems that it might be a clever way to prevent you from having to write the mud borrow all the time, because here you get items you fill variables with mutable borrows, and you can then just use them as mutable borrows without having to specify it all the time. Oh no, the chainsaw is happening again. Not the chainsaw. Construction noises. Oh, it's over. Not only game over, but it was just a small sound effect that I heard from outside. Anyway. So here is the text drawing. Text draw. Where is this text coming from? Graphics text new. Okay. New 22. What does this mean? Like 22 characters at most? It's interesting that you can't reuse the text, that you kind of do a new here all the time. I would think that this might be something that could be part of a drawing context that you wanna keep as part of your app or something, like a cache, this glyph cache. But maybe you know, it doesn't really matter performance wise, because this glyph cache, where is it used? Okay, it's just called cache. Oh yeah, use cache. It's interesting because self cache, is it an optional glyph cache? Or no, it's not an optional. So the use cache variable sounds like a boolean to me, even though it in fact is the actual thing. Yeah, so here it does the Tetris or shows the playing field, the individual items. And how is that done? So for each shape, right? And then we draw squares, get shape colors based on some shape index. I don't know how that actually works. And then, oh, for point in. Okay, so that's basically iterating over points of the next shape that it wants to print. I think that's that's the shape preview here. Interesting. So does it mean we have a duplication of this code when we want to draw the actual field? The rows and columns? Render each cell on the game board. So you basically keep track of you kind of have a grid of item or of blocks, and you treat it like that. So you basically don't treat it as individual items anymore, because after all, they cannot move once they have been set down, right? So you only keep track of one thing that is currently active, and I wonder where that is being drawn. Maybe it's part of the render each cell in the game board. It doesn't look like there is separate drawing. For the current shape, is there some current shape? Shape to grid, new shape, move shape, rotate shape. So if you move a shape, do you have some idea of the current shape? Yes, so that's kind of the current shape. Interesting. It's kind of very low level, it seems, but I actually don't fully understand this. It's amazing. My computer is still totally busy compiling the enormous amounts of dependencies here. It still uses 8 cores. And what's even worse is that the kernel time is extraordinary. What the heck is going on? I didn't mean activity monitor. Was a bad idea to try to compile this in debug mode. I didn't expect that at all. So look at these kernel times. What is going on? Something is wrong. What is the kernel doing when compiling? That's not the first time I noticed this, by the way. It's crazy. So something seems fishy here. Admittedly, I'm using a different cargo, a custom version that creates a global lock, but that global lock is really just one call where you attempt to get a lock or not, and this can't be what's causing this enormous kernel time. As if these things would be trying to access whole lots. I mean, Jesus Christ, something is wrong here. This is why it takes ages, because after all, just 20% of the CPU power actually going into compiling this stuff. Let's abort. Yeah, so just aborted this, and guess what? It's still super busy. Something is wrong here. Why is it still super busy? It's nothing I would want to look at in a let's look at, but apparently if I want to use my computer again, I will have to. So where is that kernel time coming from? This is just crazy. I don't even see it. Maybe it's the screen recording, but even that, this didn't happen before. Is Chrome freaking it out or something? I mean, the computer is, you can't use the computer that way. Yeah, I think I will call this a session and be back once this is solved. Welcome back. It's quite some time that passed since the kernel issues arose, and I even upgraded the operating system to make this work. It's also the third time I'm recording this because my microphone would randomly disconnect if connected through a hub, which wasn't kind of the case previously. However, I think now it will work, sound will remain, and yeah, we did a few things to the Tetris game. In the meanwhile, most importantly, performance improved like 4 or 5-fold just by not rendering the frame every time. So previously you would have a standard frame rate of like 30 or 60. I don't know what the standard is. Now we set it explicitly to have 60 frames per second and 60 updates per second. So we get 30 updates per second and 30 frames per second. So this means we should get 30 events of this kind per second and 30 events of this kind per second. And previously we would just unconditionally render even if the game state didn't change. And now we basically have a little flag here that tells us if we actually have something new to draw. And this will prevent unnecessary draws. And along with the very important VSync here, this actually works. If you turn this off, you have some double buffer issues and it will flip back and forth the back buffer, even though, you know, this one didn't change or something. I don't know. It's a bit weird. You see basically the past frame being flipped in there all the time. But now with VSync True, this doesn't happen. So basically it just looks like it looked before, just add a fraction of the CPU cost that it had previously. So basically now we are having the same game experience, but with only 3% CPU usage. And that's awesome. And yeah, that's awesome indeed, especially for systems like mine where stuff is just not working as it should and the kernel will spin up if the system gets too hot, which will make the system even hotter. It's actually, if the system is hot and there's load, then the kernel will do that. I don't know what it tries to do. Probably it's very confused and doesn't know either. Yeah, so that is that. I'm very happy about that. Something I also realized is that the Tetris game state is actually very nicely documented, and one tiny minor change later would actually allow us to see that change here. So if you want to learn about how it's done, you probably would would look at the documentation of the Tetris module. Very, very nice. And last but not least, the changes we have made here, that's just 2 little commits, have been provided in a PR in order to contribute it back to the project. So that is it from my side. I hope now everything worked. Thanks for watching and have a great day.